I'm calling this meeting to order. This is a regular business meeting of the Redmond City Council held on Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, commencing at 7 p.m. I am Council Vice President Jessica Forsyth, acting as Mayor Pro Tem, and I will now call roll, starting with Council President Kritzer.
Here.
Here. Let's go down the line. Councilmember Fields?
Here.
Councilmember Stewart?
Here.
Councilmember Nueva Camina?
Here.
Councilmember Anderson?
Here.
And I do not see Councilmember Salahuddin online yet, but if he arrives, I will announce him. There are no special orders of the day. The first item we have on the agenda is the items from the audience. I have a sign-in sheet for members of the public to speak tonight. When I read your name, you will come up to the podium and you will have 3 minutes to respond. Council members generally will not respond to comments or questions directly at the meeting. Members of the public are welcome to email the council anytime at mayorcouncil@redmond.gov. The views stated by the members of the public do not represent the opinions of the City of Redmond. As a reminder, RCW 4217A555 prohibits any public comment during council meetings in support or opposition of ballot propositions, measures, or candidates. All comments must pertain to City of Redmond business as indicated on the sign-in sheet. We have 22 members of the community signed up to speak today, and briefly, because I know it is a hot topic right now, I would like to give an overview of the Old Firehouse Teen Center. In March, the mayor and staff made the decision to move the teen programs from the Old Firehouse Teen Center to the Redmond Community Center at Merrimore Village and other facilities. The Old Firehouse building faces serious challenges, including the presence of hazardous materials and structural issues. We have kept the building safe for occupancy throughout our careful maintenance protocols, but that effort has become increasingly demanding and unsustainable. The presence of hazardous materials means that any damage or repair work to the structure requires extensive mitigation to protect the health for staff and visitors. We know that we can't continue to host teen services in the building in its current state, so the mayor chose to proactively move the teens to ensure we could continue to meet the standards of our community while the city council and mayor work with the community to ensure and determine the future of the facility. The future of the building, there has been no decision yet made about the future of the building. Council will decide the next steps for the building through a public process. This process includes a study session at next week's council meeting at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 22nd. At this meeting, we will discuss the issues facing the building in greater detail and the next step recommendations. In teen services engagement, while we are working on the issues facing the teen center, we are also seeking community feedback on what the teen center and the community need from the city's teen programming. We have been having a lot of great conversations with the community members, including at Beat the Bunny 5K last Saturday. We're getting a lot of good feedback, including many of our community members didn't know we had a teen center and teen services available, so we'll definitely be advertising more going forward. We also have online options to share feedback and ask questions at www.redmond.gov/teen services. There, you can submit comments, questions on the project, read through the FAQs, take a questionnaire, and help us understand what you need from our teen services. Over 200 community members have shared their feedback so far using the questionnaire. Then we will be hosting a listening session at the Redmond Community Center at Merrimore Village from 5:30 to 7 p.m. on Monday, April 28th. Just to clarify, the focus of this listening session will be the teen programs and services, not the firehouse building. The next step for the firehouse building is at the council study session next Tuesday, as I mentioned earlier. In transitioning the teen services, staff have worked to minimize disruptions to services. At this point, most teen programs are set up in their new locations and should be fully up and running by the beginning of May. And for anyone wondering about concerts, there's a full lineup of concerts scheduled. You can find out more details at redmond.gov/OFH. Most will be at the Redmond Senior and Community Center, and we will have outdoor concerts planned as well, either here on the Great Lawn or at Downtown Park. I will now call names of people who have signed up to speak. When it is your turn to speak, you will come up to the podium and you will have 3 minutes to address the council. Like I mentioned, there are 22 members of the community signed up to speak tonight, and when you come up to the podium, don't be afraid to adjust the microphone to your height. The first three names, so you can be prepared: Sasha, Mihika, Christopher, and Sasha, you can come on up.
Urging you to stop the closure of the old Firehouse Teen Center. Our calls went ignored, and you proceeded to close the doors of the Teen Center on March 28th. Myself and many members of the community ask you why. Why did you decide to engage in a backward and secretive decision-making process when it comes to the future of the beloved Teen Center? Why did you approve over $70,000 in your annual budget for 2025 for teen outreach and then wait to engage teens until after displacing them? The best outreach to teens could have been done at the Teen Center for months prior to its closing. Why didn't that money get spent on maintaining the building if that is in fact what is needed? As you are aware, the building holds over 30 years of historical significance in the community and the Pacific Northwest music scene. Why won't the city designate the building a historic landmark? That could make it possible to obtain funds for its restoration if that actually is needed. Setting aside the historical significance, the major issue now is the backwards way the city has acted. The city admitted the building is safe for occupancy, yet decided to swiftly and unexpectedly close the center with less than 3 weeks' notice to staff, volunteers, and the community. No replacement for the Teen Center is in place or planned. Others here tonight will touch on the deficiency of the city's relocation of teen services. Your credibility has now become an issue. The lot of the old firehouse is located on is valued at over $5 million. So now the community is left wondering what the real reasons are for your actions. We urge you again to immediately reopen the old Firehouse Teen Center and engage in a transparent decision-making process without displacing teens and destroying this precious community space. Thank you.
Thank you. Mihika, Christopher, and then Wolf.
Hi, I'm Mihika, and I just wanted to talk about my experiences with the Firehouse Teen Center. I've been running workshops for the past 2 years, teaching crochet at the Firehouse Teen Center, and last week on Friday, I was running my monthly workshop, but this time at the Redmond Center in Marymore. So I just wanted to talk about how I felt going into the Firehouse Teen Center compared to this new space. Originally, when I first walked into the Firehouse Teen Center, I could immediately feel that it was a welcoming environment. Even from like the small things that they did, they had a bowl of candy at the front and snacks, and as soon as you came in, none of the doors were closed. It was an open space, and you could hear music playing. As soon as I walked in, I always saw teens and local people that like inspired me to be able to feel safe and talk amongst all the people there. When I walked in to the community center at Redmond near Marymore last Friday, one of the first things I had to do was sign in to using a QR code, and I had to sign in and out of the building, and it felt like it was a space that was not open to everyone. It's not a public space that I could feel safe to be myself. I had to check in and out. And even through my workshop, I know that the kids usually felt comfortable talking amongst themselves, and there were always like multiple workshops going on at the same time where I could interact with members of the community. But at this workshop last Friday, the door was closed and we were in our own space where we were separate from everyone else, and it felt a lot different. And I would like to see a little bit of change where everyone can feel like comfortable and the teens are able to have a space where they're able to feel comfortable and be themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher, Wolf, and then Yuang Ming.
Council members, I'm one of the founders of the old firehouse, along with Kate Becker. I worked under her for about 3 years. I also went on to help start other similar programs for the city of Bellevue, city of Issaquah, city of Kirkland, and also Rochester, New York. I was also education project manager and senior member of public programs for MOPOP for about 3 years, and helped start a venue called the Showbox Soto. Worked there for about 3 years, and then I returned to the old firehouse. and was the on-site director for about 7 years. And now I currently run my own business in Seattle. And I just want to say thank you for allowing us all to speak here today. You know, I don't know why the decision to close the O Firehouse was made the way it was. However, I think you know by now that by not including the youth in the decision-making process, you have effectively told them that they are not important and their voice doesn't matter. In the entire OFH program has always been built on collaboration of adults and youth. And that's the way it's always functioned, and that's the way it functions today. And that's what's made it so extremely successful. And, you know, I think one of the questions I always ask, how do we know it's successful? You know, how do we know something is successful? I think we know because this group right here, all these faces in the audience, these young people, they tell us by showing up here that we did our job and we did it well, right? These young people are taking time out of their lives. They have courage to attend a city council meeting and speak their mind to people who they believe do not care about them and do not value them. So that tells me a lot that for 3 decades, we all did our job and did it well. So, you know, I think that we should feel very proud of ourselves and these young people here. There are thousands of young people that went through this program who have benefited from these programs. They've gone on to be lawyers. They've gone on to work at television stations. Some are musicians that are actually touring the world and spreading the word about the Firehouse and have actually inspired other countries and cities to start similar programs. You know, with this process, I have recently seen these young people cry and grieve for the loss of their badly needed programs and safety net, you know. And I asked myself, you know, is this the legacy going forward? Is this what we're doing? Taking away needed programs for young people and making them cry, you know? I hope not. So let's continue to do things right. Get past this minor lapse of judgment, give an ear to these young people, send them a clear message, and invest either in the existing program and building or a new one.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Yep.
Wolf, Yuan Ming, and then Bill.
My name is Wolf. I wanted to quickly address something that the council said. The few new faces at Marimore never show up more than once, and they comment, quote, "I first heard about teen services from the recent news about the city closing the old firehouse, and they are always disappointed seeing Marimore." I've gone to Marimore every day. The state of teen services at Marimore would be laughable if it wasn't depressing. I'm privileged enough to have the choice to go to Marimore. Until last Friday, the drop-in area was filled with gym equipment. Every day, adults would enter and use the equipment, raising safety issues. It does not feel like a safe place to be. At Old Firehouse, you could always tell when someone came in. Here, anyone can glance through the windows, see teens hanging out, walk in, and do who knows what. If a teen is in the lobby, there's no telling if that person staring at them or picking them up is a guardian or a stranger. Room 133 is a pathetic excuse for a performance area. That's the lecture hall. Fixed tables and no stage, but there's a podium, so it's suitable. It's stiff, uncomfortable, and intimidating. I can't bear to be in that room for long, and that was proven at the RIPAC meeting. Whenever I or other teens have ideas for the simplest things, like a poster, I felt the need to ask permission. The answer oftentimes is, we don't know, we don't own the building. It is not our space, that much is clear. We can try, but unless the city owns it and the entire building is dedicated to teen services, it will never be ours. It will never feel safe or feel like the firehouse did, which put teens in charge, not just the ones in the political process, but every single one that walked through the door was given the agency to leave their mark. A mixed space will never become what the old firehouse was. The room numbers, like 133, 124 are reminiscent of school because that's what the place is. We don't want to leave school and just go to another. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yuan Ming, Bill, and Chester.
Cool. Good evening, council members and staff. I am Yuan, a resident of Overlake Village who would like the city to move forward with the Plymouth housing development. A feeling I explored even while writing this comment is fear. I grew up in the suburbs of Toronto, and as a result of my upbringing and parts of my social network, it took me a while to even visit Crossroads Mall. I recommend the matzo ball soup there, by the way. Anyway, a lot of this fear is actually anxiety and wondering whom I might encounter while walking down a sidewalk. Yet, that is exactly when I realized that with permanent supportive housing projects, such as Plymouth Housing, we have the potential to move people with their permission from sidewalks and underpasses into their own units, where they would then have both an address and a more secure environment. In other words, I believe the fear around this development mostly results from it reminding people, in the form of a physical building, that other people who they were taught to see as below them exist. I believe it is ironic that because we can point to something's precise location, that we are more afraid of it. Let's continue with the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, Chester, and then Forrest.
Hi, my name is Bill King. I live and work in downtown Redmond, and I'm here to thank the Council for your continued work to urgently address our region's housing crisis. 9 years ago, I chose to move to downtown Redmond because I wanted to live somewhere where I wouldn't have to own a car. I saw the downtown neighborhood becoming more dense, walkable, and accessible, and decided that this is where I wanted to live. And in the time I've lived here, I've been happy to see the neighborhood improve with new parks and trails, more homes and businesses, and soon a train station. And based on how our population has grown by an extra third in the time I've lived here, it's clear that I'm not alone. Many people want to live in a neighborhood like downtown Redmond. I think a consequence of getting around on foot is that you naturally have more human-scale interactions with people as you go about your day. That can mean waving to a friend you pass on the street, or saying hello to a neighbor, or giving someone directions. But it can also mean seeing someone sleeping on a bench, or living out of a car, or noticing someone's pitched a tent in the woods, or looking up a bus route for someone who's trying to find shelter for the night. The housing crisis is real, and it's here in Redmond today. And here in King County, we know that the vast majority of people experiencing homelessness became homeless after losing their previous stable housing here in King County. So I applaud this council for, rather than closing your eyes to the problem or deflecting responsibility to neighboring cities, you've acted with compassion and urgency to address it and to provide opportunities for our neighbors to exit homelessness. Thank you all for your continuing work.
Thank you. Chester, Forrest, and then Onyx.
I am not here to vindicate the council or Mayor Bernie, but rather to earnestly express that I understand why the city has made this decision. Despite my life-changing experience at the OFH, I was not surprised to see it closing. I had long seen the building's condition, the HVAC, the roof, the asbestos, the lead paint, the appearance that set it apart from the tall contemporary landscape all around. I took the 2-hour bus ride to the Senior Community Center with 1 day's notice and sat down to listen. I understood Mayor Bernie's reasoning and gave sincere feedback about how we could look to the future and keep teens engaged with the city. She seemed so sincerely sad to be sending the place off. My friends around me were outraged, and I tried to comfort them, to explain that nothing else was going away. We all had each other after all, wasn't that what matters? The building had to go at some point, and wouldn't more housing in its place surely be good for a growing population? Surely we could make Mary more accessible and welcoming. It wasn't until I took a second look at Redmond and realized just how much had been stripped away that I realized my mistake. Every city grows, but gentrification has had Redmond and its residents in a chokehold since the 2000s. I have come to know that change for the sake of change is not always progress. Redmond's identity and third places have been whittled down to leave almost nothing authentic for youth to cling to. The reason behind this decision is as clear as day. As my friend Aubrey put it, the building was never the reason. The city built apartments around a place of loud self-expression and is now grasping at straws to punish those who threaten their profit. Redmond is a city that prides itself so deeply on its equity, diversity, and history, and those words are now a hollow promise to almost everyone in this room. Absent Mayor Bernie, you have effectively shown an entire generation of your future voters what truly matters to you. You have told the history books that, knowing the consequences, you are willing to put profit before lives, to render an entire city unlivable in the name of the dollar. Marymore will never be the firehouse, even if you reroute buses, put up show posters, put Ikebana classes in the new drop-in space. You cannot uproot the most notoriously loud and disruptive and close-knit community and expect it to go unheard. You can relocate the firehouse, you can relocate our programs, you can relocate us, but you cannot relocate our love for the soul of Redmond. Thank you.
Thank you. Forrest, then Onyx, and then I think last name Dems. I'm sorry, I can't read your handwriting for your first name.
Hello, my name is Forrest, as I've said before. And frankly, today I'm exhausted. I'm tired. There are all the words that you can say for exhausted. I'm 16. I started a job recently, which is exciting. I was very excited. I even found a job whose schedule aligns with the firehouse's schedule, so I could continue going to the firehouse and have a job. And in the time that I've had this job, I have felt incredibly alone since the firehouse is closing. This essential support system I've had has just dropped out of my life. I have no way to accessibly get to Marymore without putting pressure on my parents, without putting pressure on my friends, and it has been degrading on my mental health. It has been a hard few weeks. Last time I talked a lot about my experience with the firehouse and in Redmond. This time I'm going to talk to you a little bit about other people. Approximately 1 in 6 youth aged 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. Broadly, it's estimated that 50% of all lifetime cases of mental illness begin by age 14, 75% by age 24. Additionally, nearly half, 45.5% of adolescents between 3 and 18 have had mental illness at some point in their lives. In Seattle especially, we are in a loneliness epidemic. And as much as it affects adults, it affects teens far more. Studies indicate that strong senses of community and belonging are linked to increased mental wellness, physical health, and longer lifespans. Furthermore, community involvement can significantly reduce symptoms of depression, anxiety, and stress. Individuals who feel connected to their community are more likely to experience higher quality of life and well-being. There are 3,470 signatures as of today, somewhere in the ballpark of 105 comments, each one of the comments talking about their life-changing experiences at the firehouse. I urge you to read all of them. That might be the closest way to grasp what this place means to people. And I urge you to think of what your legacy to the youth of today is going to be. Do you want us to think of you as people that tear down our community spaces? Thank you.
Thank you. Onyx, last name Dems, and then Noah Grandmont. Oh, there we go.
Hello, my name is Onyx, and I'd like to tell you that we are not like items. We are not costs to be cut. We are children, kids. Not even a quarter of our lives are up, and we are still being formed, yet we are falling apart. And what do you give your struggling future when they are drowning? According to you, it's best to hand a stone instead of a better lifeboat, stealing the rafts in which we already had. To just sweep this under the rug when your youth, your children are dying? There is no doubt we are in a mental health crisis. And instead of having more ways for us to stop slipping beneath the surface of our own minds, you take the one place that allowed us to do so and gave us a new, placid and sterile location to harbor even more depression. For what? To become another statistic about the decline of teen mental health? All for a few more dollars and to have Redmond look like a gentrified corporate hellscape shell of its former self? Look, you can pretty up your words to everyone else. Doll up what you're doing to make people think you're helping us, but we can see through you and what you're doing. We are not going to be quiet about it until you give us the time of day. Put your money aside for one moment. See what you're doing to us. All of us that are here today are hurting. We are people, and we need to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Last name Dems, then Noah Grandmont, and then Noah Radford. Can you let me know your first name? Can you say it into the microphone?
Corvus.
Thank you.
I spoke about this on April 1st, back in our first meeting, and I'm here to finish what I had to say. I just wanted to start this with saying that I am very tired. We are all very tired. We have done so much for this place in 1 month, and you have sat here basically ignoring us and repeating what you have been saying. You represent us as your city's community, and we are meant to be your future. We will be here when you are all retired, and we will be the ones in charge of all the plans. I ask of you to stop trying to get people to come to Redmond and help the people who are actually here. The natural environment that we have is dying. You're replacing them all with a pathetic attempt to get people to notice this place and not helping your people who are already here that have been begging, crying, and screaming for your attention. You are going to lose the trust of so many people with this, of so many parents, so many students, so many teachers, and so many children. Your job is to help represent us and take care of this land. That is what you are paid to do. To some, the old firehouse was a home, a miracle, and a spark of hope. To others, it was just a fun place to hang out. But I feel like everyone here could agree that it was a very impactful place in all of the positive ways. So much history is still in these halls, so many memories that are still fresh, and some even from years ago. We are all people. You, me, and all of them. We all feel, and we all know what we're fighting for. And because of your decisions, we, children and young adults, have to fight for what we care about. Because this place is our home. And all of you, you're just sitting there. Do you not understand the pain that we are feeling? The knowledge that this is one of the most important places to us, and it's going to be turned into what, another apartment when you finally make the decision? You are taking our home, and you're giving us the equivalent of a cardboard box. We are people too, and none of us are better than each other. We're all just people. It's your job to help us and represent us. That is the job you have had. I am begging you to do it.
Thank you. Noah Grandmont, Noah Radford, and then Rebecca Grandmont.
Hi, I'm Noah Grandmont. Thank you for letting me speak here tonight. Throughout my life living here in Redmond, I've never truly felt like a part of the community in any way until I started coming to the firehouse. It wasn't some club, it was its own little dugout corner of Redmond for us to hang out in, to grow as people, and to develop. I haven't felt like I fit in anywhere at school or really any other community in the way I have at the firehouse. The community here, it's not for sale. We've been told that this isn't a budget issue, but even if it is, we could crowdfund. There are lots of people who'd be willing to contribute the money, and if given proper time, I'm sure we could fix all the issues thrown at us. We don't want vague reasoning, we want honesty and clarity. Whatever projected financial growth you've come up with, I'm sure will not pay off in the long run when the teens who rely on the firehouse are left without access to the support system that they've come to rely on so much. We're all human here, please show us your humanity. The new classroom spaces at Marymore have shown themselves to be dull, sterile, and lifeless. We aren't even allowed to make the space our own, and it isn't even compelling when nobody can even show up. The past month has been awful, having to run around and try and save parts of the teen center. And when you kicked us out, we had to speak in council meetings to be heard, but nobody would even take us seriously. Nobody would help us. Us teens have been put under all this unfair pressure just to keep a space we shouldn't even have to fight for. We really shouldn't. And I hope that you won't keep ignoring us and actually listen to what we want. No matter who made the decision, it's your responsibility to be making an informed decision with care for the people who will be affected. Make actions to show that you care, not just tell us that you do. I implore you to change your decision and not take such a vital resource from teens. We want clarity, we want honesty, we want humanity. Please don't take our home away. Thank you.
Thank you. Noah Radford, Rebecca Grandmont, Eric Oliver.
Hello, thank you very much for seeing us. I am very clearly not a teenager. I started going to the old firehouse when it was the YMCA when I was a wee little child. And then when I became a teenager, I got to see some really wonderful shows there and build some connections. I'm a professional musician and an entertainer, and I've made professional and personal relationships and connections that have helped me become who I am today. I don't think it's fair to necessarily take that away from other people, or more to the point, have the hubris to think that we, and you'll forgive if I lump everybody who is not a teenager in this room as an older person for purposes of this conversation. I don't think it is fair for us to make that decision without hearing from them, without thinking about what a relative desert the East Side is, and in my opinion, always kind of has been for young people, artists, and that is somewhere that's monetarily accessible, that's somewhere that is also transit accessible. We owe it to them to give them a central location, and if it can't be in that wonderful but possibly very dangerous old building, it should be in that location. It doesn't need to be condos. If I can paraphrase a quote from the classic movie, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? What is it about people that when they get old, they forget what it's like to be young? Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca, Eric, and then Noah.
Hi, my son attends Redmond High and has been going to the firehouse for the past 2 years. This year he started hosting a retro game night at the old firehouse, and he was really excited to share one of his unique interests with his peers. Before the firehouse was abruptly closed, his name had already been on the calendar to do it on April 3rd. He didn't want to attend the new space because some of the people he enjoyed hanging out with at the firehouse are not able to get to the community center anymore due to the distance from the school and the lack of an accessible bus stop. They, like many teens who benefit from the firehouse, lost access to the teen programs when the firehouse closed. Despite his reluctance, he agreed to attend because he'd already committed to doing so. And I was really hoping that we would be pleasantly surprised when we arrived at the community center. I was hoping that we'd be able to find something endearing and encouraging about the new location. Unfortunately, we did not. We walked away very disappointed and disheartened. One of the things I loved about the firehouse was that I knew that the only adults that would be there would be employed there. When I dropped him off, I knew he'd be with safe adults and teens, and the new space is not like that. When we walked in, first of all, we had no idea where to go. There are multiple classrooms, a workout room, a general open area where people of all ages hang out. For the typical, confident-ish adult, it was pretty easy to walk in and ask questions. No big deal. But for an anxious, shy, or neurodivergent teen, this place is somewhat of a nightmare. Instead of the welcoming all-teen environment that they had at the teen center, where they would walk in and be greeted with hugs and hellos, it was more like walking into a room full of strangers and kind of wondering if you should just turn around and walk away or maybe just find somewhere to hide. We did find a check-in desk at the back of the lobby, and they directed us to classroom 124, where my son would be hosting the game night. We walked into the classroom. It had boardroom-style chairs and tables stacked in a corner, plain white walls that have certainly seen better days. It was not a warm and welcome sight. I feel like you can't take a group of eclectic people and kind of put them in a bland white box and expect them to be happy there. If any forethought was put into this plan, I'm really struggling to see it. If the city's been concerned with these issues since last February, it seems that there should have been ample time to plan a replacement space. If the firehouse was truly unsalvageable, a plan should have been put into motion months ago, and a new place should have been planned and completed with the input of the teens before kicking them out of the location that they've grown to feel comfortable and safe in. Destroying the firehouse community that took years to grow and develop is a grave mistake.
And in conclusion, thank you. Eric, Noah, and Max.
Good evening, council. Good evening, friends. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I come to you for a few reasons. One, to share support and share also my experience. Currently, I manage the Redmond Town Center Zoomies at the Redmond Town Center. I've been there currently for the last 5 years. I'm a native to this area, grew up in Bellevue, but before being my current capacity, I was one of these kids. I would come to the teen center for Friday night shows when there were no skate parks to go to, when there were no safe spaces. I look into this audience and I see people that have sat on my couch in my store with no place to go until I said, hey, have you heard of the Firehouse? Have you gone to the teen center yet? And I won't say, but I can say that the lives that I've seen here because of the space that was given were changed because of it. That being said, now the change that I see is one that is not for the future. I don't even know about this space that y'all have other than the pictures that I've seen. It feels cheap, tawdry, and an afterthought. Something that would be a lease or a loan at best, and that you would be onto your next starter home for your family to grow from. Again, I don't know all the decisions that are being made. I feel like I'm kind of airdropping a little into the conversation. But again, I'm being put back into the space that I was when I was 16 and told I did not matter. That what I was doing was wrong, which was pursuing my passion of skateboarding. That led me to have respectful dialogue with the city of Bellevue. And we were able to get the Bellevue Skate Park started. We are celebrating our 30th anniversary, I believe, and have made countless impacts on so many generations for just having that space. I feel, and I want to implore the city to make this a landmark. I'm surprised that it isn't already a landmark location, that there's even a discussion that this space will be taken away. Again, I've seen the location that was proposed. I plan on this Friday putting myself back into the shoes of these people that are coming to you, parking at my location at the town center, and then taking my backpack and skateboard and going to this free event that's Friday night. And I would implore all of y'all to leave your car at your work and try and traverse the exact same things that you're asking these kids to do to get to a safe space. What is that gonna take for y'all who know how to get there? I mean, now that you got Waze, maps, apps, what about kids who don't quite know that yet? Or they have to figure out because they don't have a friend to drive, or they don't have a car, or, you know, they come from a situation that they can barely afford a bus pass. I say in conclusion, closing the teen center is wrong, and you're doing a disservice to the community, both now and the future of this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Noah, Max, and Frankie.
Thank you for having me. Music's a dream for me, and if there's any musicians in this room, I think you can tell that music's very hard to have as a career. And the Firehouse was an outlet that allowed me to do music. Through the Firehouse and the exposure that I was able to get there, I was able to participate in Mopop Sound Off and perform at the Crocodile in Seattle. And I've gotten so much growth and learning experience from going to the Firehouse. And just the fact that the Firehouse's historical value and the people who performed there in the past, being able to perform there was an honor. But at the Mary Moore Center, I don't feel comfortable even asking to perform there. Like, as a band, and the band I'm in is Pruitt, we get very loud, and I do not feel that we would be very respected if we were in that space. And I just want to say that being able to keep the Firehouse going as a music center would be very beneficial, and as bringing in a future for musicians all around the East Side area, which there's many, and there's not a lot of spaces for them to be able to do anything. I'd say being able to keep the Firehouse would be the main way to be able to keep these musicians from evolving and spawning. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Max, Frankie, and Jacques.
Hello, thank you for having me here. My name is Max Rollman. I was a recreation leader at the OFH prior to being relocated to Marymore Village. All views expressed are my own and do not reflect the city. The last time I spoke, I was angry, heartbroken, and disappointed at the decisions our politicians have made. Today, I am still all of those things. The firehouse was my family, and this closure transition has destroyed that. The firehouse has been home to many communities, ranging from Five Nights at Freddy's fan club to our music community at a RIPAC. And now those communities are desperately searching for a new home. And I fear that they will not find it at Marymore Village, at least in its current state. There needs to be some kind of change. The plans to divide Redmond up into neighborhoods and place programs in each of them is rooted in the idea of growth at all costs. But I do not think this form of growth in Redmond is sustainable. I fear that we might be following in the footsteps of cities like San Francisco and Seattle, who constructed large amounts of expensive offices and apartments in the name of corporate investments, shattering the culture and livability of these places. Redmond is taking similar actions. Corporations are concerned first and foremost with extracting profit and delivering value to shareholders, and despite what they may say, this does not lend itself to an inclusive and vibrant community. Seattle lost so much of its cultural capital and now faces severe problems with homelessness, incredibly high cost of living, and public safety. There is a name for something that grows and grows and grows with no regard for what the cost is. It's called cancer. Regardless of the future of our Redmond, I'm so incredibly proud of this coalition of OFH supporters. We have done so much together in such a short amount of time, and I couldn't ask for a better community to be a part of as we go through this difficult time. I hope the city is listening when we tell you all what we need, and we need a facility capable of supporting the kind of quality programs that the OFH has had. We need a dedicated teen space. It must be led by teens. It must provide a space for teens to grow as artists, leaders, and community members. It must have enough resources allocated to make sure teens have their material needs met, and the space must be largely independent. If we ignore these needs, we'll be abandoning one of our most vulnerable demographics. The youth are speaking up. Please listen. I'll finish up real quick. The closure of the firehouse means decades of Redmond's history will be lost, history that was being made right up until its very last breath. I ask that on the study session on the 22nd, the council invites some youth to come out onto the table and make our needs clear. Dialogue is imperative in ensuring the safety of our community going forward, and I hope that I can trust the city with keeping that dialogue open, honest, and transparent. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Frankie, Jacques Kimsey, and then Freya.
Good evening. My name is Frankie Casto, and I'm here to express my disappointment in the plan to move the teen center from the old firehouse to the community center at Marymore. In 1984, when my husband and I bought our house, there was only one light in Redmond. The old firehouse teen center was actually a true firehouse back then, and the feed store was the local hangout for residents and a place to feel like you were with your people. That's what the teen center has become for our youth. I have 4 children, all born and raised here in Redmond. All attended Redmond High School. I was also in the business of childcare for 20 years and was a Cub and Boy Scout leader for 14 years. I've driven carpools, chaperoned dances, camped with, and led young people for a long time. I also served on the juvenile diversion program for King County. I dare say I know some things about teenagers. Here's what I know about them. They live in a world so unlike what we and our children grew up in. technology, social pressures, and seemingly amazing lives of others that they peer into via their cell phones on social media. Our teen years were more like the 80s, where the higher the hair meant the closer to heaven. Or perhaps when my kids were teens, the more goth black your hair could get to match your lips, the better. You could have been a band nerd, a drama geek, or a sports jock or cheerleader, or perhaps you were homeschooled with your church group. Take any of those, and what do they have in common? They've all found a group where they belonged. None of these kids would fit in any of those groups. They have their own. And I applaud you for fighting for this. If you take the time to visit the OFH, you'll step into a wonderland of their making. There's a kitchen, a courtyard, a garden space, and a place to shoot hoops or hang out. There's art space, and the music hall for concerts and comedy shows is one of a kind. I should put this in past tense, was. It still can be. My son did his Eagle project there, as well as interned and was part of the Youth Advisory Board for Redmond, which he fought when they were planning the senior center to keep the youth space separate, because no teen wants to gather with a grandma in the teen center or a kids area with kids running around. They need their space. The adult leaders there are gifted people that accept them where they are. They encourage freedom of expression while mentoring the kids and are often trusted with things that parents aren't. It's acceptance, plain and simple. Finding a group to belong to is imperative for young people.
And in conclusion?
The Marymore Center is cold and sterile. It makes me sad because it's really clear that the teens were not called into to give any input on this. From what I'm hearing tonight, they all have expressed that it's not their space, and clearly they don't feel at home there. I hope that you can save the firehouse.
Thank you.
I know that you can put the money forward. Looking at the budgets, it's not that much different.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jacques Kimsey, Freya, and David Morton. It might be. Apologies if it's Jackie.
Jackie, yes.
Okay, thank you. Going with the French version.
It is spelled like Jacques, so
It is, thank you.
you're forgiven. Hello, my name is Jackie, and I'm here in support of the Plymouth Housing, affordable housing development on Cleveland Street. It's just a mile from my home, and I think this is going to be great for Redmond. When I learned about Redmond's plans to build housing for those who need it most, I thought I'd found a community with humanity. Shelter is a basic need for humans, and it breaks my heart to see people denied housing out of fear or hate. That's why I'm so excited that we have this Plymouth Housing, and it's great that it's right next to the Line 2. I'm excited to see the Line 2 come to Redmond and speed up our commuting to Seattle and other cities. I do wish we had a little bit more connectivity to the Marymore area, but when the Line 2 comes, I think we'll have a lot of connectivity. There was one area that I already talked to you about, Melissa, about the trail that's going into Marymore from that state. And the trail that goes underneath 520, I think will connect all the way over to the downtown Redmond, will make Marymore way more accessible. And so I'm really looking forward to that, and I think it's doing a great job. I think we need to do more affordable housing and find ways to make better housing faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Freya, David Morton, and then Linda Seltzer.
Good evening. When I first heard about the teen center's closure, I walked straight over to the old firehouse. I sat for at least 30 minutes outside, staring at the building. I saw people walking their dogs through the lawn and people from the apartments coming in and out of the parking lot that was meant specifically for the teen center. As people came in and out, it didn't seem like anyone even saw the building. They saw walking space and parking space, grass, and cement around it. Redmond doesn't do enough for teens. Youth are the future of every city, and we are treated like we don't matter. We're merely an afterthought, and frankly, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in Redmond, and I'm embarrassed. For each person that I have met that didn't live here, I have talked non-stop about how wonderful this city is. I would always bring up the Teen Center and its many programs. I would say, yeah, it's pretty cool. We have our own stage and recording studio, and we still host summer camps and other programs there all the time. Now when I look back at those people that I was bragging to, I'm embarrassed. I imagine correcting my past self. Actually, we don't have that anymore. I don't feel like this is such a great city anymore, and I'm not really proud to live here anymore. Redmond should be doing more for teens. We've had so many opportunities like this one to share our thoughts and opinions, but I can't see any change happening. I feel as though I've been repeating myself since the announcement about the Teen Center came out. Redmond should be addressing that the community center at Marymoor Village isn't a suitable place for teen programming. It's far too difficult to get to the RCCMV, even with the new light rail and bus route changes. The trip is too long, too inconvenient, and simply inaccessible. The Teen Lounge isn't designed for teen activities like music production or performance, and it isn't a youth-only space. No part of the RCCMV is conducive for youth activities. Teens need their own space, a separate building used and run by teens. A space that is safe and accessible for everyone and is compatible for youth activities should be our top priority to make teens feel heard and connected to the city of Redmond. The old firehouse made me feel like I mattered. It made teens feel like they mattered. And that's not impossible to do again. I still have faith that Redmond can do that, the right thing for teens. Thank you.
Thank you. David, Linda, and Varnica.
Good evening, council members and Mayor Pro Tem. I'm David Morton. To achieve community-wide carbon neutrality in Redmond by 2050, consider these strategies involving the generation and distribution of electricity. Let's start with community solar programs, which can be a game changer for renters and apartment dwellers who cannot install rooftop systems. By developing shared solar installations on schools, commercial rooftops, or unused public land, residents who are often left out of the renewable transition can access subscription-based clean energy and lower utility bills. Next, Redmond can deepen its partnership with Puget Sound Energy to prioritize clean power procurement. That means working toward more power purchase agreements for solar, wind, and hydro, and pushing for upgrades to grid infrastructure that can handle higher levels of distributed, renewably generated electricity. The city could lead by example by installing solar photovoltaic arrays on municipal buildings, including City Hall, the parking garage, public works facilities, city offices, and maintenance yards. These projects not only cut emissions, but also demonstrate what's possible when public dollars are invested in long-term climate solutions. To boost resilience, you could explore microgrid development, especially around critical infrastructure like fire stations, emergency shelters, and water systems. Microgrids that pair solar with battery storage can operate independently from the grid in emergencies, keeping the lights on when it matters most. And speaking of storage, let's incentivize battery storage systems at the residential and commercial scale. Batteries help flatten peak demand, smooth out fluctuations in solar output, and reduce the need for fossil fuel peaker plants. With smart grid integration, this can really move the needle on emissions and reliability. Together, these strategies build a cleaner, more resilient, and more equitable energy future for Redmond. We're not just talking about electricity here. We're talking about public health, climate justice, and energy independence. These 5 strategies would create a distributed, resilient energy ecosystem, dramatically reducing Redmond's carbon footprint while creating local jobs and energy security. The technologies are proven and Redmond is ready. I urge the council to support investments and policies that make these energy generation strategies a reality, with funding and staffing to ensure successful implementation. Thank you for your time and the work you do to shape a sustainable Redmond.
Thank you. Linda and then Varnica.
Hi, my name is Linda Seltzer, and this just came up, so I didn't have time to really prepare a comment. But the city is supposed to be committed to supporting the diverse members of the community, such as the apartment buildings in Bear Creek and downtown Redmond, which are very highly diverse. And one of the things the city needs to do is rat control. We shouldn't have to deal with this, but the rats are in our neighborhood again. Last year, when I complained about it, someone from the city treated me like I was a NIMBY and a Karen. The city really has no policy and no agency that comes out and does rat control. And sometimes they refer people to the county, but the county does nothing either. They leave it to the individual landlords. But when they're going across from one building to another, one street to another, one individual landlord can't control it. My landlord actually is following the rules. He has a pest control company that he has, pays a monthly fee to, but they don't come out like just on short notice. Like they might come out a week later or 2 weeks later. They put out these plastic traps, but guess what? Animals don't want to crawl into little plastic traps with a hole in it. Who knew? They go where the bird food is, and when there were certain neighbors feeding animals and birds, that's where the rats were, and that's where they came back to. But even though some of the feeding has stopped, but it seems like the city is doing nothing to control it, and I really feel that if they really want to serve a diverse community, I mean, like our building has, so many different nationalities, including and the building next door. And I think part of diversity inclusion isn't just hiring expensive consultants. It means actually keeping the city safe. I grew up in Philadelphia, and I took the subways through really dangerous neighborhoods every day to go to junior high school. And I did some work at Temple University, and I went to Penn. I lived in West Philadelphia. I lived in really bad neighborhoods, and there were no rats. I've been like in Chinatown and Harlem and Columbia University and, all over New York City so many times in the subways, and I never saw a rat in New York City. Redmond and UW campus are the only places where I've ever seen rats. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Varnica?
Hi, my name is Varnica Pargava. I'm a part-time staff member and the president of the Redmond Youth Partnership Advisory Committee. All comments expressed reflect my views as a participant, not a city staff or REPAC member. 4 years ago, I joined an online meeting and quite frankly, had never heard of the old firehouse before. In fact, I knew a lot less about this community than I thought I did having grown up here my entire life. Joining that meeting and subsequently walking into the OFH for the first time changed my life. My favorite part of coming to the OFH was all the different people I met through the Chili Palooza or grill outs or learning how to dance to a K-pop song. I firmly believe in the power of bringing together various perspectives, and I've never experienced that power as strongly as I have at the OFH. Through the OFH, I have met teens and staff that I can honestly say I would have never met in another capacity, and I'm proud to say that they have shaped who I am today. The community of people I joined are a byproduct of the OFH, of its liberation in contrast to the limitations of being a teen, of its creativity when the world around us enforces structure and rigidity. of its opportunity and the unconditional support given to everyone to pursue their dreams. That being said, the inevitability and necessity for the current scenario is not lost on me. I understand the concerns, both hazardous and financial. The OFH is historic in a world where we are rapidly moving toward the future. My parents always tell me that Redmond today is nothing like Redmond 25 years ago, and that is a harsh and unfortunate reality that we can't escape from. The OFH has served this community extraordinarily well for the last 75 years. It has been a safe haven, a place that I've spent the last 4 years calling my second home, a designation the RCCMV can't even begin to broach. I have watched alumni walk through detailing their experiences at the OFH, the same rooms that I grew up in, with the hope that one day I will be able to walk through and share my story with the future teens. Now I know that I will never be able to do that. But if there is a newly developed space co-created by teens solely for teens, a space that fixes any of the OFH's flaws and harnesses its strengths, a space that, unlike RCCMV, continues the liberation, creativity, and opportunity provided by the OFH, maybe then I could still walk through, look those teens in the eyes, and honestly say, to some extent, that I had a hand in keeping this community alive. But quite frankly, an isolation of teens at the RCCMV, a division of teen services of this very community, is not the Redmond that I grew up to love, is unacceptable, and will lead to this community's dying breath. It's blood on your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Written comment has been distributed to the council, and 4 people have signed up to speak remotely. Joe Kunzler, Abi Valentina Veniva, and Rob Domos. I see Councilmember Fields, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Council Pro Tem. Yeah, I did want to make a very quick comment. I know that we don't typically respond during items of the audience, but we are in fact allowed to do it. And occasionally, I think we are compelled to do it. I have heard a lot of testimony on behalf of the firehouse, and what I want to assure, a lot of the comments were that we're not listening, that the council doesn't listen, that we sit there and we've made our decisions. Council has made no decisions regarding this, and in fact, your sincerity and truth has been heard and appreciated, and you are in fact participating in local government in a very mature and very responsible and a very appreciative way. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fields. We will now go to our remote speakers. First up is Joe Kunzler.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Kunzler. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Why, thank you, everyone's favorite vice president. It's Joe Kunzler here. I'm so honored that the Redmond City Council was able to call me tonight. I was going to call about the golden age of President Kurtzer, but I feel that it would be a little crass to pound my chest and say what a great job our president is doing. We have a bunch of young students who, I'm going to be blunt, as one of the guys who spent a lot of long hours working to overhaul the Open Public Meetings Act a few years ago. For the vice president to the students, I want to say directly to you that you are picking up the tools given you by a generation that was given a worse deal.
Yes,
Yeah.
Councilmember Stewart?
The speaker needs to address the council per our rules of procedure. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kunzler, please direct your comments to the counselor or counselors.
Thank you. I will do so. I appreciate the admonition. I appreciate your public commitment to these rules. They're important to defending our democracy, especially at a time of rising incivility, as former President Biden called out today. I really think these youngsters are picking up the tools given them by a generation that was given a worse deal than our parents to continue to work to build back better. The community should be proud of these students, for the students are continuing the golden age of Redmond by opening the doors given to share their truth. And I hope they know that they matter and they're the ultimate mission of everyone around here, because we need to build back better from COVID, Zimmerman, Donnie, and we all know which one I'm talking about. I want to also stress to the Redmond City Council, and I'm going to try to be careful about this, considering I was just warned, where the lines are. that this president and I are working very hard to end the Zimmerman wars so that no one is bullied for being different. That right now, the community of Kirkland is basically allowed Zimmerman to conduct an attack against Bellevue and possibly you. We're all in this fight to make sure that the next generation doesn't have to be picked on because they're different. We just want to have public policy made with the best information possible. We want to make sure that when the West Wing that we grew up with, and I'm an elder millennial, I'm 43, when we were told decisions are made by those who show up, that everyone accepts that as a call to action and a call of responsibility. And that is the true golden age of the Kritzer era that this vice president has worked so hard to support, and I'm so grateful for your support and leadership, Madam Vice President. On May the 10th, we will celebrate another part of the golden age with the opening of 2 new light rail stations.
And in
I hope
conclusion?
soon after a new youth facility. And a new youth facility. And I want to thank everyone for speaking out. My time's up. Thank you for your public service as always. Good night.
You.
Yeah.
Next up is Abby.
Hello there.
Hello, Abby. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Yes, my name is Sylvan Gaskin, and I'm here tonight to voice deep concerns about the administrative closure of the old Firehouse Teen Center. OFH is not simply a building. It has been and continues to be a cornerstone of support, safety, and community for countless teens in our city. Its abrupt closure raises critical issues around transparency, community involvement, and ethical governance. Firstly, it is highly concerning that such an impactful decision was made administratively without the benefit of public discussion, engagement, or a formal vote by this very council. Decisions that profoundly affect our community, especially our young people, demand transparency and community input. The lack of these foundational democratic processes undermines trust in our local government. Additionally, it is particularly troubling to learn that $74,000 was allocated to Stevenson and Associates for teen outreach. However, this expenditure was described as simply getting the teens the information they need in a recent council meeting, rather than genuinely gathering input or engaging youth voices about the future of their own community space. This approach misrepresents genuine community engagement and highlights the concerning absence of meaningful dialogue with those directly impacted. Furthermore, the pattern of campaign contributions from entities potentially benefiting from local development decisions, combined with overlapping roles between local governments and development organizations such as One Redmond and Greater Seattle Partners, cannot be ignored. Notably, membership with Greater Seattle Partners includes influential local developers and organizations, some of whom have directly contributed to local campaigns. The alignment of these contributions with decisions that favor development and potentially disadvantage public resources like OFH suggests at a minimum an appearance of conflict of interest. For instance, significant contributions affiliated with GSP include Amazon and Microsoft have contributed over $24,000 to just one local politician. It is also deeply troubling that assurances were reportedly made to council members claiming public engagement had already occurred and that the community supported the closure. Yet there is no publicly accessible documentation or evidence of such community consensus. This raises serious ethical concerns about transparency and accountability in the administrative process. Moreover, the closure justification citing maintenance issues is questionable, given the absence of a comprehensive report outlining any immediate threats, aligning disturbingly with the city's broader trend of neglecting public buildings until they become redevelopment opportunities. Therefore, I respectfully and urgently call the council to reverse the closure immediately. Please commission independent, thorough, and transparent review of the decision-making process. Ensure no conflicts of interest have influenced the outcome. We must preserve integrity and trust in our local government by ensuring such decisions are guided by genuine community engagement, transparent governance, and prioritizing public good over private interests. If I had to summarize this in a single sentence, it would be you're taking candy from children. I've written a haiku for this particular instance.
And in
Eyes
conclusion?
clenched tight. Eyes clenched tight. He trips. The truth sprawled out before him. Stupid place to sit.
Thank you.
Aloha, and thank you for your consideration.
Next up, we have Valentina.
Hello?
Hi, Valentina. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay. Hello, my name is Valentina Vaniva, and although I currently live in Bellevue, I lived in downtown Redmond for more than 5 years. And I still visit Redmond often, both because we have friends here and because it's just so close and nice. I call in to voice my support for the new Plymouth housing project in Redmond, and I ask the council to accept state funding and to terminate the existing lease to prevent delays. Affordable housing, and especially housing affordable to people with very low income, is extremely rare both in Bellevue and Redmond and would be a welcome addition on the inside. There is another Plymouth housing project that have opened in Bellevue almost 2 years ago. And of course, there was a lot of concern among residents at that time, but it's been almost 2 years and the sky did not fall down, but at least some people started getting help they needed. So please support this project because Redmond, like any other good city, should be able to house all. And Redmond is a great city. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Rob.
Hello?
Hello, Rob. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Hi. I'm sorry. I wasn't expecting that. Sorry. All right, here's my 3 minutes. So I want to talk about the teen center. I'm sure that's a phrase. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. I wasn't ready for a call. I know a lot of people are concerned about that. For me, when I think about the most important thing, when people are looking to hire young adults or anyone, these days companies are no longer looking for someone with just an education. They're looking for someone who has a sense of agency, who takes initiative, directs things of their own accord, and that is something that is instilled and engendered not just in systems like schools and things like that, but they're actually by giving someone directive and the opportunity to support the things that they're interested in doing. And I know that for me personally, I'm like in my 30s and a professional at this point, but 20 years ago, where that was instilled in me was in places like the firehouse, where things that are, how should I say this, that where programming is guided by the interests of the youth. And I know that there's a lot of changes that are happening right now. And I would hope that guidance is coming from, that there's a lot of consultation that's happening where the youth voices are very, very, very strongly considered. I know that when I showed up, when I think about this, if you imagine a teen's bedroom, and then you imagine like a boardroom, and then you like compare and contrast those vibes, like where do teens want to go? I remember like 10 years ago or whatever, when all the murals that were all inside the firehouse were all like painted over. I mean, those things disappeared. That made me sad, right? And I know that when I was 13 and I showed up, that a lot of it was, there was a lot of aesthetic considerations and reasons why I was showing up, but I stayed because there were adults who cared about my well-being and who were guiding me to be a better person. And when people talk to me about how did you get into your current career and all these things, I always talk to them about the firehouse. And I feel like the staff at the firehouse reared me to be a better functioning adult and a leader in my community in ways that are completely incalculable, that never would have happened had it not been for this sort of very unique sort of programming that is really youth focused and adult leaded. So as a conclusion, I hope that I'm so sorry, I'm like flustered. I care very, very deeply that the decisions moving forward are very, very heavily consultatively made with youth, and that their voices are heard and cared for, because it impacts it impacts a lot. It impacts how they become adults.
Thank you.
In ways that I can't convey in this amount of time.
Thank you. I
I'm sorry.
appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Items from the
Bye-bye.
audience is now closed. Thank you all for your comments. Our next item of business is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
I move the consent agenda.
Sorry, just a second.
Sure.
We need a motion to excuse Councilmember Salahuddin.
There's a motion on the floor to, well, we actually, yeah, that's fine. There's a motion on the floor to excuse Councilmember Salahuddin.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Anderson and seconded by Councilmember Stewart. This will be a roll call vote, starting with Council President Kritzer. We'll go down the
Aye.
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 No. Aye, sorry, I turned my mic on.
Thank you. And that passes 5 to 1. Thank you. Our next item of business is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
The consent agenda has been moved by Councilmember Stewart and seconded by Councilmember Anderson. Are there any items to pull? Councilmember Fields.
Yes, I'd like to pull item 3.
Okay. Item 3 has been pulled. Is there any other item to be pulled? Seeing none. I did want to make a comment on an item. Okay. I just wanted to comment on item number 13, the cancellation of the lease agreement. I support this cancellation of the lease agreement, but I have major concerns over the closure of the bike ped pathway and the detour. So I strongly encourage our city staff to find alternate solutions, and that includes the highest level of safety for those walking and rolling. Could we maybe close one of the directions of lanes of traffic and convert that into a walk-bike lane only for that duration of that closure? Given the grand opening of the light rail, and it is now a critical time for us to encourage and make it as safe and easy as possible to get all of our folks to the light rail station without a car. So I just wanted to make that statement in advance of my support of that cancellation. Are there any other comments? Councilmember Stewart.
I wanted to comment on item number 5, adoption of the City of Redmond Safer Streets Action Plan, and just thank and congratulate the entire team who's been involved in this process. This has been a long time coming, and I'm really excited to have this adopted tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so we are voting on the consent agenda sans item 3. This is a roll call vote, starting with Council President Kritzer.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And that passes 6 to 0. Thank you all. And with that, I need to read into the record the resolutions that we just passed. Resolution number 1602, a resolution of the City Council of and the City of Redmond, Washington, notifying the public of its intent to designate 3 locations as residential target areas, downtown Marymore, and mixed use for the purpose of expanding the city's multi-family property tax exemption program and setting the required public hearing. Ordinance number 3212, an ordinance of the City of Redmond, Washington, amending the Municipal Code Section 2.36, City Attorney, including Sections 2.360.020, Duties, 2.36.030 compensation, 2.36040 previous compensation, and 2.36.050 associate counsel. And we'll go back up to consent item number 3. Is there a motion to move consent number 3?
I move item number 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Stewart and seconded by Councilmember Nueva Camina. Councilmember Fields, would you like to comment?
Sure. Thank you. First thing I want to say is I am fully committed to safer streets in Redmond. I have thought about this particular action way more than I ever thought I would. Initially, I have expressed my support, and it will be voting no tonight on this measure. And it is a complicated decision for me, but primarily I don't know that we're ready. When I listen to the testimony and do the research, there's a number of concerns I have. One is the hardships that is likely to be created on people who are already incurring more and more ongoing hardships. We have to be very careful on what we're doing to our community. The financial burden, the time it takes to go to court, all of those things have given me pause. I also have concerns based on our discussion last week that we've not really addressed the checks and balances. It wasn't clear to me what council's role in going forward. How do we fine tune this? I think that this is very much a public issue in the fact that the survey was majority of people in Redmond who responded to the survey did not think this was a good idea. So this is very much a political issue, and it deserves council to be very much involved in not only implementing this initial decision, but how we actually modify it in the future. And it's not clear to me what council's role in this is. And in addition, I have always expressed over the past year or two, when it comes to street safety, that we are not addressing the more urgent problem of high speed, reckless drivers, people running through red lights, and I would like to see more attention paid to that than something that we are, in my mind, we are not ready to do. I am obviously ambivalent about this, but I had to make a decision, and I'm voting no.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, I have a comment on this one, as I'm sure you're all surprised. I want to make it unequivocally clear that I support the speed cameras in school zones when lights are flashing, but I cannot in good conscience vote for this entire package as it is. I believe we're penalizing our community for past road design decisions that are encouraging speeding, and I believe we haven't gotten through the traffic calming measures that we've been working so diligently to implement. I also think that we should give a chance to the citywide speed study that we know is coming. Additionally, just last week, we delayed a fiscal policy in order to gain more feedback, even though that policy is for a very narrow group of users and actually expands options for those users. Yet we're moving forward with this plan, and it impacts the whole community after we've received feedback stating that much of our community is not in favor. I personally don't believe we fully understand the entirety of the scope and scale of the impacts, and I'm unclear on what the ticket fee structure for infraction of speed ranges is. From my own research, I found that the typical fee in Washington is $124, but I don't know if that's what the scale we're using is going to be. I'm unclear on what happens if a vehicle is involved in an exorbitant number of infractions. Does that vehicle get impounded? Does it get a boot? I think we haven't done our due diligence there. Council also requested a way to mitigate costs for low-income households, only to find out that the solution requires an appearance in court, causing those already disproportionately impacted to take time away from their jobs, which many low-income households typically cannot afford to do. A solution that I just discovered was that we could bypass this in-person appearance by adopting the Seattle model, which is if you're on any sort of Washington program like WIC or Title 74, you may be eligible for a 50% reduction in that ticket amount. And these are things that we haven't even explored. I know I'm in the minority on this, and I fully expect this to pass, but I do not feel that now is a time to be adding additional burdens on our community. More specifically, additional surveillance at this time doesn't feel particularly good. Therefore, I will be voting no. All right. With that, I think we have a roll call vote, starting with Council President Kritzer.
Aye.
No.
No?
Aye. Aye. No.
Oh, that's a split vote.
Point of order.
Councilmember Fields.
It needs a majority vote to carry.
Correct, yes. That is a split vote, and that means that it dies. Council President Kritzer.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing from my colleagues tonight. I would just say, as a matter of process, we talked about this in study session. Many of the issues that were brought up tonight were not brought up during that study session. I think our council could have spent the time at an additional study session or additional work to be able to work on this. And I hope we can look at this going forward. I think the reason, as we discussed at study session last week, that we were going to move forward with this was that we wanted to be able to put some measures in place to make it safer for our kids who are going to schools where we have areas where people are speeding through school zones, and to just start with a very limited number that would specifically only be when lights were flashing. Do appreciate the issues that were brought up, but again, I would say many of those issues were not previously raised, and I would have just asked my colleagues that when we do have study sessions and there are issues, that before we put something on the consent agenda, that those issues be fully raised so that we can work through those, because I would have been happy to address those as well, should those have been raised during those sessions.
Councilmember Anderson, did you have a comment?
I'm not sure why we're commenting after the vote is over.
Thank you.
That was my comment.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart, I'll allow it.
Thank you, and I appreciate the council president's comments on process. I'll say for my part, I'm disappointed because the cameras in front of us and the program we've been studying and the ordinances related to it that we've been studying and giving direction on for a long time actually help implement the Safe Streets for All action plan we just adopted in our consent agenda. So I look forward to continuing the conversation however the council can. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item of business is a staff report on the fourth quarter 2024 financial report. Kelly Cochran, Director of Finance, will introduce this item.
Good evening, Council. Happy to be here tonight to present to you the preliminary results for the 2023 through 2024 biennium. I also wanted to touch base with you on the standing of our first quarter results. Hold on just a second. Given the economic climate, I wanted to let you know where we are in the implementation of some of our items and what we're seeing when it comes to some of the economics that impact our budget. I also have a few budget updates for you and some additional thoughts that I've had since I created this slide. So fourth quarter for 2024 ended just as anticipated. Not a lot of surprises on either the revenue or the expenditure side. We've seen really good growth in some of our ongoing revenues, including sales tax and utility tax. Sales tax grew 4% each year of the last biennium in our ongoing revenues. We did see a decrease of about $10 million as anticipated in the one-time revenues related to the really high level of development occurring in the city with regards to the Microsoft Refresh project as well as Sound Transit. So all in all, the revenues are as anticipated, as well as expenditures. The largest savings for us in expenditures were salary and benefits. We are still waiting for some final numbers to come in. I do not anticipate a lot to occur here in the expenditure side. The departmental budgets were also very well managed in the last biennium. We did have an overage really related to overtime in some unprecedented circumstances. As you're aware, we've made some adjustments and improvements to how we budget for that line item, and we are partnering with other departments to learn what we can about what we can further control and improve on how we manage this expense. The capital program is where I failed to cross the line with REIT and impact fees. They just couldn't make it for me, but very, very close. I can share that at the end of the year, we did see an uptick in both of those revenue sources, and results for the first quarter continue to look above what they were a year ago. Just received the most recent REIT numbers, and we were looking at $600,000 for a pretty slow month typically, so good results so far. Water, wastewater, utility is showing signs of really complete recovery from the pandemic, where we were really hit with the commercial loss of the commercial customer class. That is really fully recovered, and we are seeing now growth occurring because of occupancy of a lot of the multifamily development that has occurred over the last few bienniums, as well as some healthy irrigation usage. We budget very minimally for irrigation because it's risky. If it's too hot, we say don't water. If it's too wet, we don't water. So that is typically a pretty conservative budget line item for us. And we had some hot summer instances. We did ultimately cover expenses with our revenues, although December looks a little misleading. That is really due to some one-time transfers of excess fund balance that were moved to the capital program. It was part of the plan for the biennium, but I like to hold on to the cash until I'm sure we had positive results. All of the baseline budget offers, again, no surprises. You may see some indications that we were over budget, and that may mean that the line items in particular baseline offers were over. Likely those were absorbed in other baseline budget offers or funded through reserves or fund balance. That's not reflected here. That's the case with solid waste, where we had some additional costs when it came to negotiating our new contract, and those were handled with some one-time funds from fund balance. The safe and resilient priority is where we did see some excess costs when it comes to jail beds, and that's where we really see the primary impact of our overtime expenses. Strategic and responses landed where we expected, as well as vibrant and connected. The overage in the Microsoft campus refresh baseline just really indicates the quicker pace that project is moving and the use of fund balance that is available for that. So to touch base on the first quarter, it has been interesting day by day. Watching the various indicators that we use to help inform the assumptions that we make about our forecast as well as our performance. I picked up a few that I wanted to just check in with you on. The CPI numbers have come in lower than anticipated in the budget, which means that we have sort of over forecasted based on these updated trends. And so that gives us as well a cushion. It's a conservative forecast that we made, and CPI is still well within the range that we utilized. We anticipated 4% in 2025 and 3.5% in 2026. The retail sales growth has declined for 25 and 26 based on where we were last fall. This is a countywide forecast, and what it doesn't take into consideration for the city of Redmond is the light rail coming into town, as well as the impact that the repopulation of the Microsoft campus is having as those folks come back to work. The assessed evaluation as well as the employment growth are still within the boundaries that we had used to inform our assumptions. No indications yet that there is any concerns with our forecast. We are able to provide you with our actuals through the month of February, which is really not informative. So far, I can say that things are looking as expected, which is not informative. I can share that we have received our first sales tax payment for the year. So there's a 2-month lag in sales tax. It is at the amount expected, $3.6 million for essentially January's revenue, so right on track. And I'll let you know if there's any indication that February's payment is leading us in the wrong direction. Utility taxes also have a bit of a lag, but no indication that we expect any losses there. So far, so good, but we have our eyes on things. I also wanted to provide you an update of the new revenues that were a part of the budget package, just to let you know that nearly all have been implemented, although we have some that are still in process. Sound Transit, we expect that those conversations will pick up again once the new administration has settled in. Transport fees are expected to be collecting by June. We do not anticipate a loss in any of the revenues. It's really just a change in the timing. More work required to, I think, get us going, getting someone hired and getting the program through all of the requirements that allow us to collect. Speed cameras, those conversations will continue with council. And there is a user fee that we will be working with the environmental sustainability team to understand and get adopted by council as soon as we have that calculated. Expenditures are just as we would anticipate for this time of the year. There is quite a bit of transactions that come in during the first couple months of the year that are accrued back to 2024. But so far, we are seeing what we would expect. When I look at what we are tracking, monitoring, working to learn what we don't know, it sort of falls into these 4 buckets for me. So there are some direct funding that we receive from the federal government that is easy to identify. It really falls in our capital program and is grants. And we have no indications that those grants are at risk. We've provided all information requested about the grants we've received, where we are in the progress of the projects, and have not heard any additional news since then. There are also some programs within our fire department really aimed at providing other agencies support when they are in need that have been sort of pulled into conversation at the federal level, but no decisions have been made. So we will let you know if we hear anything. The other part that's harder to know is the indirect impact of things, either the trickle-down effect or just, needing to make decisions at different levels as those impacts are felt. And we are learning all we can in this area by working with our regional partners, as well as leaning on the new lobbyists that we've hired in Washington, D.C. that's helping us make some of those connections. I'm sure that you've heard the word tariff in the last week, and that really kind of falls under the next bucket. So we, again, know where some parts of the city would be directly impacted, also learning to understand what some of our indirect impacts would be, and sort of what are our options if it turns out that we need to change course. We are monitoring closely some of the metrics that I shared earlier, really get at shifts in consumer behavior. There's some early shift that, indications that folks are moving towards making small luxury item types of purchases instead of planning for vacations. Sometimes that's a short-term behavior, so we'll keep our eyes on it. And certainly the cost of procurement is something that we are aware of. We at the city are starting contingency planning, really learning, again, what we know, what we don't know, and how we're going to find out, and putting some priority around actions that we can or maybe want to take if we realize any of the different scenarios that could be coming at us. There is a lot of different scenarios at hand at the same time. And so I want to make sure that we have planned for each and have some ideas of where we would want to discuss or act first. So we are getting that underway at the director team level, starting in finance to really put the components of the plan together. We'll be working with the departments to understand more from their department level, and then move that up to a citywide discussion. I also wanted to remind council and the community that within the general fund, we do hold reserves and contingencies. The piece of information that is not on this slide that I will get added for future presentations is the operating reserves that we hold in a separate operating reserve fund. They are 9.5% of the general fund budget and about $10 million. So that is certainly available if there is a need to have that kind of discussion. I will let you know that even in managing the pandemic, we did not need to dip into our reserves or really contingencies. And so, hoping that if there are any management decisions that we need to make, that, we can do that without having to make that decision. But obviously, if things are swift and severe, we'll do our best to really kind of focus on long-term sustainability of the city and try to balance things out best we can. As far as the budget process goes, we'll be back in May to provide you with the full first quarter review that I hope is a little bit more valuable. But I do want to stress that if there are any signs of concern, you will hear from me immediately by most likely email, and I will then work to get myself on the next available agenda to discuss the situation with you, regardless of what committee that may be. I also spoke to you about an added study session in November to review performance and service enhancements. And I heard you at FAC, and I've got some ideas on how to sort of fill the gap or the void about outcomes and decision-making and sort of bringing a holistic view. So I'm working with the mayor's office to round out those ideas. I'll reach out to council leadership, and I hope to have some ideas in front of you by May FAC. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from council members? Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Thank you. Director Cochran, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. Even though I fully understand, first quarter, there's not a lot of information to share. I deeply appreciate you sharing what the contingency plans are, speaking directly to what's happening at the federal level, how that could impact us, even though speaking to it at a high level, both for us here on the dais to have a better understanding and equally as important for our listeners to understand that yes, we are aware of what's happening, we're considering what's happening, and we are still steadfast in our values and the commitments that we've already made. So thank you very much for this report out.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Fields and then Councilmember Stewart.
Yes, Director, I want to echo the comments of my colleague, Councilmember Nueva Camina, about the appreciation. we've had a number of discussions during the budget or late in the budget about the things that you raised, and I think it's essential, the work that you're doing to maintain that vigilance. My question, and maybe a bit of a concern, is the length of time it takes if we have these contingency plans in place. And I know we have contingency funds, but let's just pretend for a moment that many of those points that you brought out actually happen, and we get a perfect storm of reduction in support from the federal government, and we get a large downturn in business, and we do in fact see costs from tariffs or inflation or other economic drivers drive up the cost of many of our plans, capital projects, basic services. We certainly have the MOC coming up. What is the speed that we can actually implement any contingency plan outside of using contingency funds? What can we do in a short period of time?
So thank you for the question. And we do have the ability to act pretty nimbly, and I think that for those that were around during the pandemic, you saw us do that. We come to the table quickly and made some decisions and were able to implement. I would say it's a very hard question, Mr. Fields, and I do appreciate it.
No, well, let me make it a little more direct, and I appreciate what you're saying. If we can't raise taxes in a heartbeat, we can't start selling assets. We do have some leverage in borrowing money. I would assume that there is some level of contingency where we would postpone a plan for some of our indebtedness and maybe go to operation and maintenance type indebtedness. I mean, that's really what I'm after. What can we do if we become cash poor? What is it that we could actually do?
So there are about 10 things that we can do and that will impact the sustainability of the city, just looking at sort of how I've compartmentalized things in the plan that I'm working on. And you're correct, not all of them are immediate. I think they're important to consider because I think that the situation we're in, if it is occurring, will likely be sort of longer term. So let me just, I guess, first we have to isolate the problems. So if we start to see indications that there are, the housing market is struggling or development is staggering because of increased costs caused by tariffs, our development review model is a cost of service model that is designed to ebb and flow based on our demand. And it also has reserves built into it that are there to smooth those peaks. And all of the directors that work to manage that line of business work really hard to know when their triggers are in order to start either decreasing expenditures, wrong way, sorry, or working to control expenditures through attrition or things like that. When we look at the capital program, it's again a program that I've seen be hit really swiftly. When we had the Great Recession, we essentially in a day felt like we were no longer getting impact fees or connection charges, and it really was about prioritizing where we are making sure that most of all the programs and projects aimed at maintaining what we had are going forward. Anything assigned to mitigating a risk or safety is going forward, and those things that are moving forward to accommodate growth hopefully have funding sources that come with them. If not, we have to either discuss delaying or phasing. The MOC is a giant conversation, and I think it's going to come down to understanding more, really, before I can speak intelligently, other than, I'm assuming we certainly could look at phasing that project, but again, the more we move out expenditures, the more they will go up. So there is, I think, a balance in the capital program. Operating outside of our cost of service models, our primary goal is to minimize impact on our services while controlling our expenditures. There are a lot of tools in our toolbox to do that, and many of them we used in the pandemic. We utilized some one-time funding for ongoing things to get us through. We've also funded a lot of new things in this budget, and I am keeping track of what's been implemented, what hasn't been implemented, what perhaps might make sense to slow or potentially reconsider. That would all be a part of the plan.
Thank you, Director Cochran, and I appreciate what you said, that it comes in all kinds of different potential ways, and that you're keeping your eye on all of them. And the last thing I would want to say is I appreciate and I'm happy that you're there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much, Director Cochran. I was so excited to see this on our agenda for tonight. I don't want to skip over the last biennium. So that budget was built in a time which was another moment of a lot of uncertainty as we sought to continue to recover from the impact of the pandemic. So I just wanted to say thank you, Director Cochran, and thank you to the team and everyone who was involved in delivering on that budget. For my part, I was less interested in lines of the budget that might have gone over by a percentage or two, and more focused on the areas where large chunks of spending didn't quite get spent, because I know that probably represents work that the team wanted to get done and didn't cross the finish line, and they're carrying that with them too. So I just really wanted to recognize everyone for their incredible work on that. I have maybe one request for our next our next staff report in May, when we see more about the first quarter. And that is, we've been talking about these contingencies, if there are things that the council funded in the budget that management has decided to put on hold, we probably are very understanding of that, but we would love to know what they are. So if we could see that included. And I actually really like the template. I promise I'm getting to my one and only question here. I actually really like the template on the slide labeled 25-26 new ongoing revenue, because it demonstrates some of that new stuff. So if we had a similar slide about any kind of spending we weren't taking on at the moment. So my question is related to the Sound Transit police revenue. This was a topic of conversation at our council retreat. It's labeled here as in process. Can you tell us anything more about what that means? Have those dollars arrived at the city? Staffing, we've all got light rail on the mind for these next few weeks.
The positions have not been posted, have not been filled. We are waiting for this funding agreement to be made. From what I understand, conversations were moving forward and then stalled as the Sound Transit administration is changing over. So it sounds like there's indications that those conversations will resume again soon.
And another way to say that, Director Cochran, just to make sure that the council and the public are clear, is that we aren't doing work for Sound Transit that they've not yet paid us for. Is that correct?
From what I understand.
Okay. If you have an update for that next time you come, that'd be great too. Thanks.
I will provide that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further questions, thank you, Director Cochran. Appreciate it. Our next item of business is a staff report on the Earth Day and Arbor Day activities. Jenny Liebeck, Environmental Sustainability Program Manager, will be introducing this item.
Good evening, Council. Just give me 1 second while I pull this up. Okay, good evening. This will be a little bit lighter topic than finances. So good evening, Council. So I'm Jenny. I'm the Sustainability Manager here at the city. So each April, we have the opportunity to honor our planet and the trees that make our community beautiful with Earth Day and Arbor Day. And we know that these are more than just holidays. They are a call to action. And so tonight, I'm excited to highlight a few great opportunities to celebrate Earth Day and Arbor Day and take action in Redmond. But first, I just wanted to acknowledge that our community is our most powerful partner in this work. From modeling resilience in their homes, to Redmond's tiniest community members growing our tree canopy, and volunteers helping to keep our storm drains clear. We are very fortunate to have such an amazing community that lives the values of Earth Day and Arbor Day all year long. So for those who are looking for some specific opportunities this month, I'll highlight just a few this evening, starting first with our Solarize campaign. So we know that solar is a really impactful strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, cut energy bills, and build a more resilient Redmond. And this year we have partnered with our Eastside City partners on a Solarize campaign. So this is a nonprofit supported program to streamline going solar for community members. And so through the campaign, homeowners can get discounted rates on solar through group purchasing. They'll have access to vetted high quality contractors and have access to free technical support and educational resources to help make the best decision for their homes. So if community members are interested, they can sign up at solarizeeastside.org for a free solar assessment, or they can attend a free educational workshop on May 7th at the Redmond Senior and Community Center to ask more questions and get involved. So the program closes on July 4th, so we do have a little bit of time, but there is no better time to sign up than Earth Month. Next up, the city is celebrating Arbor Day all next week, so it'll be Arbor Week. And again, we love trees in Redmond and the countless benefits that come with a healthy urban forest. And so, again, our Parks Department is offering a really great mix of Arbor Week activities across the city. So we've listed them all here, but really just to highlight a lot of great environmental education sessions, forest walks, tree identification, and story time with KCLS librarians. And there will also be a showing of the Lorax at the Redmond Senior and Community Center next week as well. So again, full calendar of events. I'll have the website at the very end, but you can take a look at those in more detail. And then finally, on April 27th, the Redmond Senior and Community Center is hosting a repair fair event. So this is where volunteer fixers help community members mend household items and clothing, which ultimately will save community members money and reduce waste that we send to the landfill. So again, just a sampling, but community members can visit our Earth Month webpage for a full list of events. And appreciate your time this evening, and happy Earth Day and Arbor Day.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Liebeck? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for sharing those great events with us. Our next item of business is the Ombuds report. Councilmember Stewart is representing April. Councilmember Stewart?
Thank you. This is a bit of a long report. It's been a busy month so far, but I'll just take a point of privilege to remind folks that this Saturday here on the municipal campus from 9 a.m. to noon is the city's gun violence prevention program. So anyone who has an unwanted or possibly improperly stored firearm in their home and is a Redmond resident and would like to dispose of that in a safe way, you can visit our website to learn more, and we hope to see you here on campus on Saturday. A couple of things coming in this week so far. We had a late night noise issue that a downtown resident has been sharing with us. I am coordinating with staff to see if there's been an update on this issue, as this is one that's carrying forward from a prior month. I received a couple of questions about the status of the playgrounds for parks impacted by the bomb cyclone, and Director Hamilton got back right away with the council with information related to the two playgrounds that continue to be impacted, Anderson Park and Idlewood Park. The main, any council member can provide anyone who's interested with more details, but the main story is as equipment and materials are arriving, those are scheduled for restoration. As early as we can, but definitely by midsummer, so as soon as we can. A resident last week informed the council of a news story related to an administrative action. We've gotten lots of feedback and insight and comments regarding the Old Firehouse Teen Center. Again, council will have its first study session on that on April 22nd next week. We received letters in support of some of the items on our consent agenda tonight, including Plymouth Housing's items and the Safe Streets for All action plan. We received feedback on an intersection where traffic backups frequently occur. I was able to engage that resident in some thoughtful conversation, and Deputy Director Garcia was also able to provide a little bit more insight on that specific site. I had a conversation at the State of the City event with Sound Transit staff, and I'm sharing this out because as council members, I think we get this question a lot. The conversation was on the topic of the Sound Transit surplus land related to the area in and around the Marymore Village Light Rail Station. Sound Transit is in the very early stages of beginning to think about how to do community engagement, to go through a process, to develop a vision, and then one day do an RFP for what may come next on that. So just wanted to share with the council that it really is very early days for that specific site. The council received a question on the role of the police drone and why it was flown at a recent downtown park event. We got a response from Chief Lowe that using the drone actually allowed us to have fewer officers on site. And I also just wanted to thank the organizers of that large event who really did leave the park as if nothing had happened. It was, there was no impact. And I've heard that directly from park staff as well. Council received email updates on progress toward the implementation of the Recology contract from Director Burt in Public Works. This includes a look at the community outreach plan and how residents will be supported through the transition, residents and businesses, I should say. Also some news in there that our Recology store will likely open in October with a location hopefully to be announced soon. I know there's a lot of interest in that. And then we also received the 2024 annual report from police, and this highlights year-over-year declining crime, implementation of new technology. Something that was top of mind for me, because I got questions about this at my office hours last week, was about the updates on the co-response program. There aren't a lot of updates in that report about that, but I do hope, looks like our chair isn't here tonight, but I was hopeful that our public safety chair could maybe schedule an update for us soon. I believe that is all for the month so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other ombuds reports? Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Last week, I got to tour our Drone First Responder Flight Control Center with Council President Kritzer and also Council Vice President Forsyth. And it was about the same time that we had gotten the inquiry around the drone being present during the event on April 5th at Downtown Park. It was great to learn more about the product or the project in it being in use and how our safety is able to have a first responder there in just mere minutes. But more importantly, because I was such a driver around privacy data privacy and bias, is that seeing the drone in flight and taking a horizontal view approach so that it's not looking down on anything and not picking up any data, collecting any kind of data, and it's not being stored. So that was really wonderful to see, the concerns that council had be put into practice and see just how that's making a difference. So really looking forward to the continuation of that.
Thank you. Any other ombuds reports? All right, I will jump in with mine. So I had some conversations with folks around the Old Firehouse Teen Center, specifically around audio engineering, sound engineering, and what it would take for the music space to be rebuilt and what the cost impacts of that would be. And they were actually very impressed with the current setup in that space and kind of blown away by what the teens actually have in that space for recording and sound engineering. Had a communication on the city's letter to the State Liquor and Cannabis Board, conversation re the bomb cyclone and the the feds not approving the FEMA funds for Washington. Conversation around the police drone at the park, and attended that Drone as a First Responder event as well, and was really encouraged to hear some of the stories that the police were able to share with us, and had suggested that they share those stories out with the community and alternative policing tactics that our community has been so interested in hearing about. And then I also had the opportunity to have a conversation with the State Treasurer's Office around the municipal bond conversation at the federal level that we will be talking about a little bit later in this meeting. And that moves us on. I see Council President Kritzer for Ombuds report.
Thank you. Sorry I didn't get my hand up a little earlier, but I'll just note I also have had quite a few conversations with folks about the Old Firehouse Teen Center, and I look forward to our study session next week, and when we can begin the council's discussions and decisions on that particular topic. Also, we'll note that I attended the State of the City event last week. And was able to, during the networking beforehand, talk to a lot of our local business owners. And it was really great to be able to talk to several businesses that have opened up in recent times and to hear about some of the support that they've gotten from our economic development staff. And just to be able to see some of what the business community in Redmond is thinking. I think in particular, one of the highlights from that also was just hearing about, how they're thinking about how the light rail is going to impact, hopefully positively, their work, but certainly some questions around that too. But I think overall, having more people coming to frequent their businesses. So that was really interesting to be able to connect with some of our smaller businesses during that event. And then I'll also note that I attended, along with a couple others on the council and the mayor, the Arch Investment Celebration, to be able to support or talk, to be able to celebrate all of the really amazing affordable housing that we have been able to create in collaboration with our neighboring jurisdictions. And it was great to see a lot of other council members and leaders, mayors from our neighboring cities, as well as other people who just came out to be able to support this work, and heard a lot from community members about how impactful it is to see all of our cities working together towards this common goal of more equitable housing choices across our region. So those are just a couple things that have come up for me in recent times with our public. Thanks.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is committee reports. Are there any committee reports this evening? Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Very short and sweet. I attended Disability Board along with Council Vice President Forsyth. I'm so sorry. And just making sure that everything gets processed smoothly.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much. I attended the Growth Management Planning Board. We reviewed and recommended for certification 13 more comprehensive plans. If you're keeping track, we only have 64 more to go. But I have very exciting news, which is next month the board will be taking under consideration Redmond and Redmond 2050. I've seen the preliminary report that PSRC staff, the Puget Sound Regional staff, Regional Council staff have prepared, and it's basically basically an A+, folks. So I'm so proud to represent our city on that board. There's a couple of comments that are happening on every single recommendation for certification. The first one being we are in a housing crisis, so take this seriously. And a heads up that more guidance is coming on things like implementation of 1181 and what needs to be in climate chapters in our comprehensive plans. And as we know, Redmond and the Planning Commission and all of the community members who were involved in that process built a really beautiful start. So we'll look forward to the guidance from that. So looking forward to recommending Redmond for certification in the coming month. I also attended the Sound Cities Association Public Issues Committee. We had a really robust discussion on wastewater treatment division's rate proposal for the next decade. It's a tough conversation, and the rates are really staggering. We're really lucky that Amy Tsai from our staff has been very involved in the conversations to date, and we're going to continue to have this conversation in the PIC space. We're also tackling the other really hard one in terms of rates and solutions next month, which is solid waste. At the meeting, we also reviewed the results of SCA's survey that recently happened, and I know that folks may be interested in that, so I'm actually just going to forward the whole PIC packet to the council members. And we also had an update on the state of the legislature and how things were going in Olympia at that time. Thanks.
Thank you. Council President Kritzer.
Thank you. And so I attended the Eastside Transportation Partnership meeting this last week, and we had a couple really interesting presentations. One was about from Sound Transit about the opening for the light rail, and just wanted to highlight a few things for all the council and listening public. Obviously, we're opening the downtown Redmond light rail extension and the Marymore station on May 10th. And just one thing to note is that this is actually the Redmond stations are the first Sound Transit 3 funded projects that'll be completed. So kind of a cool milestone for Sound Transit. Also, they noted that they are just starting with test trains on I-90, and so we will know more about the official timing for the connection across the bridge once they start to see those tests go through, and they'll have a better idea of the timing there. I'll also note, as part of the downtown Redmond light rail extension, the Marymore Village station is going to include a 1,400 parking stall structure, which is apparently one of the biggest parking garages in the Sound Transit system. They also noted that when when we actually do get the connection across the lake, we're going to see a slight difference from what we'll see at first when we see this initial opening through into downtown Redmond, where we'll see at first we're going to have the two car trains, but when it connects across the lake, it will include 4 car trains instead. So we have a larger capacity, and I know that's been something residents have often asked us about say, are we going to have enough capacity when we actually connect across the lake? So they're actually going to be adding that capacity, but only once we are connected across. Similarly, some of the hours right now are they don't go into the wee hours in the morning, but they will once they actually connect across the lake. So they'll be keeping the kind of same hours that they have now, but then they'll be expanding. And then just a note on the actual events, and I will try to get all the details working with our legislative coordinator to the council, so everyone has all this. But I will just highlight here that the ribbon cutting is from 10:30 to noon, and then the first trains will depart at noon, and then there's activities at both of the stations from 12 to 4. And there's going to be all kinds of great things activated by Redmond, One Redmond, and then many different partners along both of those areas. There'll even be bike rides coming into the stations. So just look out for a lot of those events that are going to be really popping up. I know we got a couple emails on our council emails through on the schedule there. So, but excited to celebrate that with our public, and just wanted to highlight that. I'll also highlight and just gave that longer piece because I thought the council might be interested in all those details as well. But I will note the other thing we heard about is that During the pandemic, King County Metro had paused fare inspections and basically enforcing fares on Metro buses, and they're going to be resuming fare enforcement and inspection starting at the end of May. And so just wanted to give a heads up. I can share more of the presentation they shared about some of the factors around that and how that's going to happen. One of the things they stressed was that part of the reason for this is also to make it so that our bus operators don't necessarily have to be the ones that are enforcing fares to help to support their safety, and they're adding some more safety measures for them. Obviously, we saw some of the issues this last year around safety for those operators, and I think they're trying to take extra measures on that. So anyway, there's a lot of information that I'm happy to share out around that, but that was very interesting. And we also heard from the new Washington State Department of Transportation Secretary Julie Meredith, and got to hear a little bit about her vision. She's been at WashDOT for a long time, but now has taken the helm. So that was really interesting. And then I'll keep my other updates pretty brief, but we'll also note that I attended a meeting in my capacity as RIA 8 Salmon Recovery Council Chair with Senator Murray's office to discuss salmon recovery priorities, and just really appreciated hearing. We met with one of her staff members, and we were able to just hear about her support for the work, in particular that we're hoping to be able to see, especially in support for our environmental agencies and for funding for local projects across our region, and that she takes that really seriously. So it was good to be able to hear that, and hopefully be able to engage her staff more on some of the specifics of what we're seeing as needs in the region around salmon recovery. And I think that's all, unless I missed something here. I will pass it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? All right, seeing none, that closes that item, and we have no unfinished business, and we are moving on to new business. The next item on the agenda is new business AM number 25065, preserving tax-exempt municipal bonds. We received earlier today a letter in our inbox from our federal lobbyist who is already hard at work for us. So I would encourage all council members to read that letter if you haven't already, and to sign on to that letter to preserve our city's ability to issue tax-exempt municipal bonds. For more than a century, state and local governments and nonprofits have financed infrastructure and community improvement projects using tax-exempt municipal bonds. This infrastructure includes roads, bridges, public transit, ports, airports, parks, utility facilities, and affordable housing, just to name a few. It's critical to maintaining a strong economy for every community member and business in the country. In the last decade alone, $2.7 trillion in municipal bonds have been used on over 80,000 projects nationwide. In the last several years, Redmond has used tax-exempt bonds to build new roads and buildings such as the Senior and Community Center, City Hall, and our stormwater and water quality facilities. Elimination of this tax-exempt bond would correspondingly raise borrowing costs for governments, which would be passed on to local taxpayers. The Government Finance Officers Association estimates that the elimination of tax-exempt bonds would cost the average American household $6,500 over the next 10 years. I hope you'll join me in signing the proposed letter to our legislature. I would now entertain a motion for council to sign on to this letter, if there is one.
So moved.
Councilmember Stewart, sorry.
Thank you. I move to sign and send the letter to the ranking members of the Senate Finance Committee and U.S. House Committee on Ways and Means to strongly oppose all efforts to remove or adjust the tax-exempt status of municipal bonds through federal legislation.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Stewart and seconded by Council President Kritzer. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Anderson.
At the beginning, you mentioned either we could sign on ourselves or this is a council request. Can you please clarify, please?
The vote on the floor right now is for the whole council to sign on?
That does it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? All right, this is a roll call vote, starting with Council President Kritzer.
Aye.
Wait.
Oh, I apologize.
Sorry.
Councilmember Fields, I apologize. Please go ahead with your question. Councilmember Fields, did you have a question? I think we've lost your audio. Oh, there you are.
It's not going. Am I back? Sorry. Are you there?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Why is it not going to a broader group of federal legislators? Why is it going to the ranking member only?
If you read the letter that's in
Well,
our,
not only, but
if you read the letter that's in the inbox, it has copies to our delegation as well.
okay.
All right.
And
Proceeding with the vote, I believe you are next, Councilmember Fields.
no.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And that passes 5-1. All right, moving right along. There is no executive session. Is there anything for the good of the order? Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. Just a quick mention about the month of April, in addition to being my very favorite month of Earth Month. It is also Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago at study session, and it's a challenging time with recent political transitions for survivors of sexual assault, abuse, and harassment, especially for our LGBTQIA+, transgender, and immigrant communities. Despite the dramatic drop in sexual violence by half in 20 years, one person is harmed every 68 seconds in America, with the majority of child victims being teens 12 through 17. And 9 out of 10 women have experienced sexual violence. The issue still requires commitment to changing beliefs, values, and norms that allow sexual violence to occur in our communities while others stand idly by, especially with the rise in technology-enabled forms of violence. As a survivor, I am privileged to be in this role, to be a voice for members of our community, and I'd like to thank the council and administration, and especially our outstanding Redmond Police Department and Redmond Fire Department for the work we have put in to protect and support survivors in the last 7 years I've been on council. I ask you to join me in listening to, believing, and supporting your survivor neighbors, and making safe spaces for them to heal, to share their stories if they are ready, and eliminating barriers for their path to justice. You are not alone, and it's not your fault. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other items for good of the order? I will just say thank you to Councilmember Stewart for raising the last item that we just voted on about the municipal bonds, and for her work on that as well. All right, that concludes our business items for this meeting. If there's no objection, we are adjourned.